Welcome back to Better Than I Found It, the podcast, All Things College Golf. You're listening to Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach at Baylor University. Joining me today on Better Than I Found It is Abilene Christian assistant coach Robby Pickett. Now, Robby has a unique coaching history, having served as a graduate assistant, an assistant coach, and also head men's and women's coach at 2 different schools, all by the age of 30. Robby talks about the impact his college coach had on him and how he has used that experience to aid him in his own coaching career. Another unique aspect of his coaching journey is the fact that his wife, Allie, is the women's assistant coach at Abilene Christian. He speaks to that dynamic as well. Enjoy the listening. All right, Better Than I Found It listeners, join me in welcoming Abilene Christian assistant coach Robby Pickett to the podcast today. Hey, it's really nice, Robby, to have you on Better Than I Found It. Welcome.
Thanks. I've been listening to it for a long time. It's an honor to be here.
You know, you gave a comment, I don't know, it's probably 2 or 3 years ago in a text message to me about the podcast. You were a loyal listener and you'd listened every week, and we had already known each other before this, but I remember you saying something like, I love the stories. Give me more coaching stuff. Give me more coaching stuff. So you were like starved for like information that would make me a better coach today. And I kind of took that to heart. And so I tried to start asking coaches questions where they would kind of have to almost give some secrets. You know, they're Mike Small, you know, what do you do that's different than other coaches, or Ryan Hibble or Scott Limbaugh, whoever. So I appreciate that suggestion, because and I'm going to ask you some of those questions today too, but it's like, I wouldn't have this podcast if I didn't think I would learn something. I wouldn't have this podcast if I didn't think it could add to college golf if a young coach wanted to listen. So thank you for listening. Thank you for that suggestion. And here, let's get going. You ready to get going?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
Okay, perfect. Well, we're at a busy part of the season. Obviously, both the ACU Wildcats and the Baylor Bears are kind of having one more tournament, which we're getting ready to go to. In fact, you fly this afternoon, and I will leave on Friday morning to go to College Station. So it's a busy time of year, but it's also a good time of year to get perspectives from coaches, just so people who aren't in coaching kind of can have an understanding that it's not all just going out and playing golf every afternoon and having a good time at the club. And there's a lot involved in this, and you're at a busy time of year. Tell me about what the Wildcats have coming up over the next couple of weeks.
Sure. Yeah. So as you mentioned, we leave later today. We're going back for me to Columbus, Ohio. The Buckeye Classic. Ohio State's hosting at Columbus Country Club. So should be a good test. Especially for the weather part for our guys, we'll have about 10, 11 days off before we head to our conference championship, the WAC, which is in Payson, Arizona. We played there last year at Chaparral Pines, so we're in crunch time. We're gearing up, ready to go, and hoping we can finish strong.
Well, you know, you mentioned the Buckeye Classic. I know this because I've played in a couple of regionals at the Scarlet Course and the national championship at the Scarlet Course. Played at Scioto Country Club, Muirfield Village. So I've taken a lot of teams to Columbus, Ohio, and it can be amazing weather. I mean, It can be just as good as you could imagine, but it could also be pretty challenging. What's the forecast this week?
Yeah, the forecast is mostly cloudy. A little bit of rain in our practice round, potentially. Highs in the high 40s to high 50s. Not a ton of wind forecasted, but we're certainly going to bring a lot of our rain gear and warm weather or warm gear along for the ride. So it'll be just as much of a mental challenge, I think, as it will be a physical challenge.
Well, and I have a player on the team from Indiana, Drew Wrightson. He's from Indianapolis, and kind of when we get to a tournament, he sees the wind's going to be blowing, and he sees it's going to be a little chilly or potentially some rain. He's going, gosh, we die for these days in January, February, March. It's like these would be great days.
Sure.
So most of the time, the weather we talk about it. I don't know a single athlete in the world who thinks about weather more than a golfer. Like every day when you get up, at some point you're checking the weather. Why do you do that? Because I know I do it.
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's how badly do I want to play, basically. I mean, there are plenty of golfers who, if it's not 75 sunny, they're not going. But I mean, as you know, in the college golf world, it doesn't really matter sometimes. You might come to a conference championship or a regional championship with unexpected weather, and you got to be prepared. So definitely down south in Texas, we're spoiled in a lot of ways. And as you mentioned, your player Drew, like when we're in March, April, if it's just 50 degrees and even a light rain, you're like, man, this is great. So definitely different perspective on different parts of the country and the world for you there.
Absolutely. Well, before we get into your background, because I want to get into your playing background a little bit, the we are recording this on Wednesday before the Masters, so this will go live this coming Monday, the day after the Masters ends. So I've got to ask you, predict the winner, and then a dark horse that really nobody's talking about that you think could win as well.
Sure. I think my winner's pick is even still maybe not a dark horse per se, but people haven't been talking about him a ton. It's hard for me to not root for or not expect a past winner, even if they haven't played particularly great. But Jordan Spieth is starting to come back into form, and he's played well. He's healthy this year. At least it seems like he's healthy. So he's probably my pick, just as much from a fan perspective than just an actual prediction standpoint. And my dark horse, I was actually talking about this with some of the guys the other day. I got Phil Mickelson. He's played fairly well at in the live, and then he's just again past winner, and dark horse, got nothing to lose. Who knows?
Well, he's a dark horse because he's in his 50s.
Sure.
He wouldn't be a dark horse if he was in his mid 30s. I think he won there in 2004. I think he was 34, something like that. I think he and Ben Hogan won their first major at the same age, which is hard to believe that Phil played all of those years, all of that great golf, and hadn't won a major until he was, I think, was 34. But when I think about Phil, and the reason I don't disagree with what your dark horse pick is, there is he feels good and has a good week. He's probably got a chance.
Sure.
And I remember when Peter Uline, who was playing for me at Oklahoma State, was a U.S. amateur champion, and he was paired with the reigning Masters champion, and it was Phil. And Peter hit 15 greens. Um, he missed three greens and bogeyed all three, and three putted a couple of times and shot 75. Phil hit nine greens and made no bogeys. And every time he missed a green, Peter told me he was facing a slope. So it was like he knew exactly where to miss it. And people think, oh, he plays dumb shots or he does this or that. No, he knows how to play that golf course and navigate it. That's why
Sure.
I think in his 50s, Jack Nicklaus competed, Bernhard Longer competed, Freddie Couples competed
Sure.
well into their 50s, no problem. You know the golf course, you've played it 100 times, and you've got an advantage. So if Phil feels good this week, I don't disagree with you, dark horse.
Perfect. Yeah, let's see
So
what he can do.
yeah, let's see what he can do. But and I love Jordan Spieth being a Texas kid down here. He's still well loved in the world of Texas golf. So okay, your playing background. Who was the biggest influence that got you into golf? I mean, you've become a really good player because I know you've played in a U.S. Mid-Am in 2019. And if I can give just a couple of stats, I think your 74 average was the second or third best ever at Allegheny College.
Mhm.
And you were the 2016 Allegheny College Male Athlete of the Year. So you obviously know the game. And I might have you describe what it was like playing in that U.S. Mid-Am. But who got you into golf? Who was your biggest influence?
Yeah, so I'm actually a first generation golfer. Nobody in my family played golf. I played all sports growing up, and I would see golf on TV here and there, or see a golf course. I'm like, man, I'd like to try that. And I had some cousins that they played very casually that I went out once or twice, and I started to like it and just didn't play a ton. And my sister started dating a guy who was really into golf. Right at the similar time where I was starting to gain some interest in it, and so he and I we bonded in a lot of different ways, and it's funny, he and I are still really close friends to this day. I see him every holiday season, despite now being 1,000 miles away. But I mean, he was big into golf, big into sports, and it kind of got me playing a little bit more. and I started to fall in love with golf a little bit more. And so I continued that partly from my own love and interests, but it was without a doubt his influence in our relationship that got me
You
going.
know, you're really the first coach that I've talked to or player that I've talked to on this podcast, and this is the 247th straight Monday that said that. I mean, normally it's dad or it's a club pro or somebody, but this was just a guy who was dating your sister and he loved golf and you ended up loving it as well. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
And so tell me about your college coach and what were things. I think if you've told me in the past he wasn't really a golfer, so how did he inspire you as a player? What are some of the things that he did as a coach that maybe you like or copy or emulate today? Tell me about your college experience.
Yeah, so Coach Jeff Groff, he's been at Allegheny College for 40 some odd years now, I think. He was a baseball player. He wasn't a golfer, as you mentioned. Um, so he was very big into on your own practices or just kind of letting you do what you think you needed to do. Being at a D3 program, the stakes are a little different than what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. But when he became the head men's golf coach, they had made the national championship for 30 or so consecutive years. They'd won a championship in the early 80s, come close before he I forget if I think he coached Nathan Smith for a couple years as well, who, if anybody knows, he's won the US Mid-Am 4 times, been on a Walker Cup team. Really, really good player. So he understood a lot of that greatness and what it takes. And sometimes you've talked about it with some great players before. Sometimes it's just get out of their way. And not saying that we were on the same level as some of those guys that you guys mentioned, but um, he was really good about all the behind the scenes stuff. Whether it was recruiting, he recruited a lot of really good players. We were a pretty good program for being in northwestern Pennsylvania, where we averaged 100 inches of snowfall a year.
Oh
Uh,
my gosh.
and we had some good teams for sure. And that can't be done without what he did recruiting and the planning that he did. From now that I am a coach, I can really appreciate and understand how much he did behind the scenes because from my perspective anyway, it looked like he never had anything to worry about because everything was all, lined up and had his ducks in a row, probably at least a month ahead of time. And so that's a big thing that I've tried to emulate. Also, just know when it's you let somebody maybe have their free time or alone time, or hey, you work on what you need to work on. Certainly, when I was a head coach, I did a lot of on your own stuff. But I was like, I'm here for guidance. Whereas he wasn't actually there for guidance because of the golf background differences. But it's like I want you to look about or think about who you are as a golfer, where your strengths and weaknesses are, and what do you need to work on. Because that's what I did. One year I wasn't hitting many greens, so I was like, I need to work on iron striking. And then the next year, I that was a little bit better, but my short game kind of fell off. And so then the next year was like, I really got to work on short game. And so just, I looked at all of my own stuff and I don't know that I would have done that to the same extent if I had somebody, um, kind of telling me what to do all the time. So there are a lot of nuggets that I picked up from him and what I try to do, at least to some extent, maybe in my own way, without a doubt.
Yeah, it's a different dynamic Division III because there's no athletic scholarships. You just have academic scholarships, and so you really got to love coaching because you're having to beat the bushes and kick up out of the weeds players that have a chance to be decent players, but they must be good students. So, what did you get your degree in?
I got my degree in economics. Yeah.
Economics.
Yeah.
Okay, I hated economics. I hated it. I only remember one thing from an economics class. The lady, she called it the law of diminishing marginal return.
Sure.
And I remembered it because I love food so much. And she said, okay, so here you are, you're a hungry guy and you're sitting in front of this beautiful deep dish pizza. She said, you're going to take a bite of that pizza and you're going to get the most unbelievable amount of satisfaction out of that bite of pizza. But every single bite, you may still be getting satisfaction, but it's diminishing as you go until when you're full, that last bite, not as much satisfaction as the first. Is that the law of diminishing marginal return?
I've never heard it described that way, but yeah, that sums it up pretty well. I like that.
Okay, that's the only thing I remember from her class. I wasn't very good at economics, but
Of
anyway,
course, it's food related.
it was food related, absolutely. Well, so every coach has a moment or a season or a time of life when they said, you know what, I think I want to be a coach. I've described mine several times on this podcast, and I've asked several coaches, what was yours? I mean, like, who pointed you that way? Was it yourself? How did that look right then?
Sure. Yeah. So I don't remember. I remember this kind of the general idea of when it dawned on me. I was walking down the first tee at our home course in college, um, and it just kind of popped in my head. I was like, what would you think about coaching? And I was playing by myself just later in the day. Wanted to play a few holes, and I was like, I think I'd like that. I was thinking a couple things. One, I've always enjoyed helping other people. When I was in preschool, I didn't know how to tie my shoes yet, and a lot of my peers they wanted to tie. They were getting the teachers to tie their shoes, and there was like a line, and I went home later that day and insisted to my mom that I was like, I'm teach me how to tie my shoes. And so the next day I could help some of my classmates. And of course, there was some empowerment as a 4 or 5 year old, however old I was, of being able to do that and being a little independent. But then I was able to help them. And so I've always had a lot of that kind of mindset, who I am. And when I was thinking about with the golf stuff, I was like, that would be an opportunity for me to stay playing golf, which I love, just be around the game, which I love, being able to help others, which I love. And I looked at my coach at the time and was like, outside of some of my teammates being knuckleheads, whether it's with grades or other things, it's a pretty stress-free job. And granted, D3 life is a little different. And he had both men's and women's teams, so the difference is there. But I was like, I think that it check off a lot of the boxes that I really want to pursue long term. So that's kind of the story of how I at least gained interest into wanting to coach and try to pursue that opportunity.
Well, yeah, but then even though that's the case, you've got the interest, you have to have an opportunity. Some opportunity has to avail itself. And so I'm going to describe the first opportunity you had was at Ohio Dominican uh, in as a GA to go back and get your master's. So I want you to describe that experience in a second. But you also went to Denison University as an assistant coach after that, Lake Erie College as the head men's and women's coach, and Thomas More University as the head men's and women's coach before you got to ACU. You've had the most varied experiences at a lot of different levels of any coach I've ever seen to be so young. So, and we're going to talk about ACU in a minute, but tell me about how you got the opportunity to go to Old Dominican or Ohio Dominican, because a lot of guys reach out to me, young guys say, hey, do you have a GA position? And we don't have it at Baylor. How did you come up with that one?
Well, sure. Well, one thing, I actually started. I didn't the first coaching cycle after graduating. I didn't get any jobs, so I found a job and I worked for the Hurricane Junior Golf Tour. I was a tournament director, um, and that was actually something that m my head coach at Ohio Dominican, Chris Dybel, he had mentioned to me after I got the job that he really liked my tournament running background. We would host 4 tournaments a year, two on the men's, two on the women's, and just some of the rules and other things that I gained. So that was a big part of that. I had a high school teammate play for him, which also helped, and just go through the interview process. And um, I mean, he gave me an opportunity ultimately. So I saw a posting, had a few small connections, and I guess was on my way from there.
Yeah, that's great. How was being a GA and taking a rigorous academic schedule? It sounds like to me you're a really good student, but an academic rigorous schedule and also the academics and the golf coaching at the same time. How'd you handle that?
Yeah, the first year was, I don't want to say really tough, but it was just a lot of adjustments because I was trying to balance both golf and like the coaching, men's team, women's team, the travel, and my school and everything. It was nice though. Our master's courses were only once a week,
Mhm.
so it was just a one long class, usually at night, so it didn't impact practices too much. They had a few online options uh, that I did utilize it later on. but it was kind of nice though. They separated into one half the semester and the other half the semester. So once I got once I kind of figured that out and started scheduling for the next semesters, I kind of front loaded or back loaded. In the spring semester, I front loaded, so I did from January to March. I did more classes, so I had either nothing or little in the coaching season, and I was able to take some in that next summer in between. So I actually got it to a point which I didn't like myself in the summers when I had a lot of extra work to do then from a school standpoint. But I had no classes in the fall season that second year I was there, and I had only one class in that spring season. Um, so I was able to kind of game the system a little bit to balance that out, which helped tremendously.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't game the system, if you can't figure out a way to, if you're always taking the path of most resistance, that's not going to work. You created something that allowed you to get through that. And I've talked to one of the coaches that I've known, Austin King, but he started as a GA at South Alabama, and he described that year, and he was a great student as well. But he described that 2 years that he was there as a great experience for him. It was a great opportunity for him to get into the coaching, sink his teeth into coaching, but also get a master's, which is a great opportunity. So, of those four coaching experiences before you got to ACU or where you are now, uh, what's a valuable experience? Something you like, one of the most memorable things that happened in those four different unusual coaching experiences.
Sure, yeah. So few things stick out. My when I was at Ohio Dominican, the men's team anyway, my first year to my second year, we improved like 11 and a half or 12 shots. And I forget what the award name was when Golfstat had it, but there was a most improved
Mhm.
like team, and we missed that out. I ended up figuring it out by like I think 1.3 shots or something. So that would have been really cool, but it was just really cool to, see the team just really change from one year to the next, partly from cultures, work ethic, some recruiting, etc. Um, and probably the another one that comes into mind when I was at Lake Erie College, we had um, we were a brand new program, only been around for a few years, and we had some talent, but it was just they were young, inexperienced from some of the college golf world, and we had some not great success from a team standpoint, but we were kind of building up to, I was trying to hopefully get them to peak at the right time, and we were expected to finish either ninth out of 10 or 10th out of 10 in our conference championship, and we came, I think it was fifth or sixth, but we beat, loads of teams we weren't supposed to beat, and it really helped also. One of our guys, Tony Bazzioni, he won the conference championship as an individual, and I was planning on walking with a different guy each day, and and after the second round, I walked with him, and he shot an amazing 67 5 under, and we didn't realize it until the guys said he was either in the lead or tied for the lead, and I wasn't planning on going with him the next day, but unanimously they were like, you got to go with him," and he followed it up with another 67. And he ended up winning, and that I mean that goes a long way for our team success. But it was really cool just to be with him for the final 36 holes of that championship as well, and watch that matriculate. It was pretty special.
Yeah, and I talk often on this podcast about uh, coaches taking an opportunity to walk with one kid, from the moment he gets his scorecard until he signs that scorecard 6 hours later or whatever. But I, I think it's sometimes, especially, you learn a lot about a kid, and the fact that that's probably the first tournament of any significance he had ever won like that, and you were there walking alongside him. Great, great experience, great memory. I have a memory of you, and that is the day we met. You had emailed me on numerous occasions, had gone back and forth, and you realized our conference championship, the Big 12, was at the Greenbrier in White Silver Springs. And you said, "Hey, I think I'd like to drive over and watch you coach." I said, "Sure." We played 36 holes on the first day, and interestingly enough, I called you. I think we got the second round rained out, so we weren't going to be playing that afternoon. And you were in your car, and you were going, "Oh, dude." So, what do you remember about that day? I know what I remember, but what do you remember?
Yeah, well, so um, I didn't tell you ahead of time. I was just gonna be a complete surprise, which I don't know if that was a good idea or bad idea, but I was just thinking I didn't. Our coaching season was over. We didn't make the postseason, and I had some time in my, just to go out there, and I wanted to kind of meet you in person, maybe have a chance to talk to you, but watch you just kind of what you do on course. At the time I just read your book and had a few conversations. Just want to see what you did differently, what I could do, etc. And I was driving, and I knew that the forecast was so-so, but the forecast looked before I left was like, all right, afternoon looks like it's gonna be okay. And I'm probably 30 minutes out or so, and I see that it's canceled from weather. And I think I called you or texted you and was like, "Hey, I just saw that it got canceled. I'm really close. Do you think we have any time? If you have any time for me to not completely waste my trip?" And you're like, "Sure, come on." And so I had no idea where I was going. If you've not been to the Greenbrier before, it's hard to navigate if you don't know specifically where you're going. My service wasn't great on my phone, so that made it more difficult. But eventually, I found the clubhouse, and we talked outside for I don't know 2, 3 hours, whatever it was. Um, so it was. I mean, I still got a lot out of the trip for sure, but that's kind of my side of it.
Yeah, well, my guys were just back in the room chilling, so I thought, yeah, if he's made this trip, let's make it happen. But from that, it reminded me of a lot of things about you that will lead eventually to success in coaching, and there's no doubt about it. And that is just a constant quest for improvement. And you were even willing to drive 4 hours just to watch a guy coach. And, you know, when the afternoon round was canceled, I thought he's made this trip. Let's just sit and talk. Maybe I can learn something. But I don't even remember what we talked about, but I know it was good. But you've been sacrificing. You're USGA rules certified. You've studied deeply in the mental game, and I know you've done a lot of reading there. You TPI certified, Titleist Performance Institute. So you're constantly doing things to add to your coaching toolbox. What drives that?
Yeah, I'm a really curious person. I think that's the biggest thing. I'll go down different rabbit holes and look into different stuff, just what piques my interest at the time. And I mean, when I'm really interested in golf, and so there might be other rabbit holes outside of golf that I go down, but they always keeps coming back to different golf things. And I, as we know and you've talked about, being a golf coach is a little bit of a bus driver sometimes, but it's also, a mental coach. It's a planner. It's, practice guy. Sometimes it's fitness. I mean, every part of somebody's life is involved a little bit. And so I just, I think the more that I can know, the better that I can be at different things, the better I can be for other people. And not saying I'm necessarily an expert at say some of the fitness stuff with golf, but I can have a much better conversation when talking with whether it's a swing coach or a biomechanical guy, whatever it is, and have a good understanding of that and how it impacts, and then I can translate it to the guys as well of you know. If I'm weak, if I just don't have that much hip mobility, one, what can I do to help that so they don't have to go see somebody specific and potentially waste time or whatever. But then two, it's like if you have that problem, like we might see this in your swing or in your game, and that's just how we need to game plan how we need to figure out how to overcome that. And that's just one example of many. So it really stems from being curious, and just and and I really like to learn, hence being curious. So it's kind of an all-encompassing thing, and it's a little bit of a selfish thing that I just want to be better.
Mhm.
I want to be able to help guys. So. Um, it's it stems from one place, but it matriculates in many others, I think.
Well, and I've watched as your career has kind of developed and moved forward, but you've had to make a lot of sacrifices, and you're in a good spot right now with Tom Shaw, which I want to talk about Tom in a minute. But you have another unusual experience going on right now. We talked about being a men's and women's head coach at two different schools, being an assistant coach, being a GA, but you coach with your wife, Allie. You know what? She's obviously a good player. I think she's won some state amateurs. She's done some good things and played college golf, but she's the assistant on the women's team at Abilene Christian. You're the assistant on the men's team, and you kind of work in the same building. A couple of things. One, her team played very well this week at Texas A&M's event in College Station, and I think they finished third, maybe. So I know she's a really good coach, and I know she's adding a lot to the program. But it's very rare for a husband and wife to be working in the capacity where you are. do you guys bounce things off of each other, coaching ideas at dinner? How does that dynamic work?
Yeah, for sure. We always are talking golf. Whether it's for ourselves or the teams or et cetera. We it's She got home last night from the memorial at Texas A&M, and kind of the first thing we did was we talked a little bit about her event. We talked a little bit about some stuff that's going on for us leaving here today. Uh, it's we'll pick different ideas. Even when she before we got to ACU, she was the head women's coach at the University of Dayton, and I was coaching as well. And it was pretty constant, like, hey, am I crazy? This is what I'm feeling, or this is what happened. What would you do? Or this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? And I'll have similar conversations or what have you. So yes, it's definitely unique, but I think it's really enjoyable in a lot of ways. My mom, when we were dating, used to ask, do you guys go on many dates? And I was like, depends what you mean by dates. If you count us going golfing, then we go on dates like every day, just about. And so it's just we've always had that in common. We're both very passionate about the game, and from a teaching perspective and a playing perspective. So yes, it's unique, but it's also really cool to be able to do that and have that in common. And then it's also I know plenty of people um, with their significant others, they might not know much about golf, and so it's almost like a sore subject or like, oh, they're talking about golf again, and it's just not that way. And I don't know that I can imagine it any different, to be quite honest.
Well, that's neat. That's a different dynamic. I really have enjoyed watching it, but I know you must really enjoy coaching with your wife. But you coach for a guy I respect a great deal, and that's Tom Shaw. Tom shepherded Tulane through a really tough time with Hurricane Katrina back in 2005, and he's had a lot of different coaching experiences himself, and but he's obviously doing a great job at ACU. They've won a conference championship under his leadership. But what's the best thing Tom's taught you in this time you've been with him?
Sure. Well, so I think he's for anybody who doesn't know him, he's doesn't talk a ton, but he's really introspective. And even there are times when you don't not that you don't think he's paying attention, but you don't know that he's actually noticing, and he does. And he's really, really good at picking up on a lot of just emotional language, body language from other people. Um, he'll meet somebody for a short period, recruit or otherwise, and he'll pick up stuff that maybe that I it's not that I didn't pick up, but it's like I didn't think about it quite the way that he did. And I mean and then as those relationships develop, I mean it's 9 times out of 10, I think he's dead on. Um and that's hard to teach necessarily, but when you just watch it and see it happen, you start to pick up a little bit on what maybe to pay attention for or what questions to ask, what questions not to ask. So from a non-golf specific standpoint, that's absolutely the best thing or things that I've learned. But when it comes to the game, he's super knowledgeable in the golf swing, some of the technique parts, different TrackMan numbers, what's important to look at, what's not important to look at, putting, whatever it is. And I've known a lot of just like, hey, you got to go hit this shot, but some of the numbers you're looking for, what are optimal or et cetera. That's more of a nerdy thing, as I call it, from the nitty gritty, but it's helpful. And I hadn't thought about some of that stuff or had access to some of that stuff in some cases. But those are probably the two bigger things that I've picked up on, at least so far.
Yeah, and I've always thought that too. And one of the things that I get from Tom is the calmness. And he may be churning inside, but on the outside, he just remains pretty calm, which I think his players have to feel that and get good experience from that. I realize it's difficult to talk about yourself, but give me a quality or two, or an attribute or two that you possess that make you a good coach and are going to make you a great coach one day.
Sure, I think it's kind of one same thing, one big thing, but it's split into two parts. I'm really really determined, have a really high standard, but I also have a deep care for people. So even when I was a men's coach and a women's coach, and we had 12 or so on each team, I wanted to know each individual person, and I wanted them to be as good of a person and a golfer as they possibly could be. And so at times it was almost maddening to to try to push them to a certain standard, a certain level, or better than they could, or what they thought, whatever it was. But also give that much time to each person, and I think that you have to really, really enjoy doing it to not say brush off five guys on a team, whatever. And I know some coaches do it at least to some extent from time to time. And obviously, when you're at a tournament, you only have five, maybe six guys to focus on at that time, which is a little different. But I was always, making sure that they, if I was traveling with the men's team, the women's team, they were doing stuff, and I wanted them to try to get better. Um, and again, it comes from I really, really like to teach and care for other people. And sometimes, that standard of excellence or what have you can be can be a lot if you're not up for that challenge. But I think that I can find out pretty quickly because of that who is really trying to push themselves, who's really trying to get better, and who's just kind of saying the right things. So I think I don't think that it comes across at least once guys get to know me that I'm trying to be really difficult necessarily or push them really hard. It's that I do really care for them. I want them to be better if they want to be better. And what's great about that is, I got 10 guys at ACU now. They come over to my house. I try to do once a semester, and have them over for dinner and just develop relationships with them and learn about them, whether it's chipping with them or again having them over at my house. I have coffee with one of my guys about once a week, just to talk about whatever he wants to talk about, and all of that is because I really really care about who they are and what they want to do, and I want to help. So I think that's probably the kind of the superpower or whatever, however you phrase it was.
Yeah, caring, I think the most important thing a player should know is that you care about him or her. I think if they thought you didn't care, it's like, what is the rest of this all about? But you mentioned the standard of excellence or standard of expectation, or you have a high standard. Don't ever, 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 ever lose that or soften that, because that's the only really regrets I have as a coach is when I lowered that standard or didn't hold a kid accountable, and then I knew it instinctively. I knew it. It may come across abrasive sometimes, or it may come across as too much, but he or she will always appreciate it later in years. That person pushed me and tried, and I think if I have a weakness in coaching, and I do, but that's one of them where I will honestly sometimes defer to. I just want to be nice. I just don't want to have an uncomfortable moment here. Don't ever lose that standard, Robby. I'm telling you, that's huge. Okay, question I've asked the last five or six coaches that I don't even know if it's a good question, but I'm going to continue to ask it until somebody says nope, don't do it anymore. And that is, do you have a coaching mulligan? You're only in your early 30s. You've had a lot of experiences, but you haven't coached that long. So or how old are you?
I'm 32.
Yeah, 32. Um, Coaching mulligan, do you have one? One you'd just like to have over?
Sure. One comes to mind, and it's I'm torn by it though, because even while I wish I would have done something a little different. I think what happened because of it was tremendous. But um, my first year coaching, um, I had something in my head of what I wanted everyone to do or be, and just was really coming across probably too strong. And it wasn't any one moment, but it was kind of a series of moments in that first fall where I was just a lot and frustrated by some of the stuff that they did, and they just didn't seem to care, and that bothered me a little bit. And so I just, I was kind of tough, and some of that was different because of the head coach. He's a lot softer in nature, just who he is, but then also just what they'd experienced from the past, grad assistant before me and everything else, and so they weren't expecting it. So it was just this rapid change, really quick. So it's not so much that I wish I didn't do it. I wish I did it differently. I
Mhm.
went about it differently because, as I said, I think what came out of it, it just took a little bit longer maybe to get there, but things really transformed. The following year, we started to get, back on good terms with some of the guys and everything, and they improved 11 and a half, 12 strokes that next year. So
So it's not really so much a coaching mulligan as I kind of wish I done it differently, but as it turns out, it probably made me a better coach because I went through it.
sure, absolutely, yeah. It's just I didn't know that I needed to do something a certain way, and in the moment, I thought I was 100% correct, and there were parts where I was correct, but definitely parts where I was incorrect.
Okay. All right. Well, we're all learning. We're all growing and maturing as coaches. All right. I'm going to do something with you that I haven't done in maybe the last 10 or 15 podcasts, and that is a speed round. I haven't prepared you for this. I haven't told you what the questions are. They're not difficult. You're a smart guy. Here we go. You ready?
Sure.
Okay. I know you're a Midwest boy. I know you're from up a little further north, kind of a tough weather. Life's a little different up there, maybe, but you've been in Texas long enough to form an opinion on this question. George Strait or Luke Bryan?
I'm not a huge country guy, but I definitely would prefer George Strait over Luke Bryan.
Golly, you see, I knew you were smart. If you could win one tournament, what would it be?
Um, the U.S. Mid-Am.
Okay, and this is like an incredible pathway to the Augusta. It's
Hmm.
like it's the perfect pathway. Work on your game. You need to get there. Favorite course, one of your teams where you've coached through the years, just the favorite golf course you've ever coached on.
Uh, Probably Mid Pines in North Carolina. I got a post renovation. It's fantastic. Not overly long, but man, it's great.
It's a great club. I've been there. Chipotle or Chick-fil-A?
After a tournament, Chick-fil-A, but during tournament, Chipotle.
Okay. Okay. All right. After, okay. Nobody's ever said it that way. Favorite pro golfer?
Um, Currently, it's probably either Ricky Fowler or Jordan Spieth. Of all time, Arnold Palmer.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see you going wrong with Arnold Palmer, and I coached Ricky Fowler, so I'm okay with that one as well. Number of hole-in-ones you've made?
Zero.
Zero. So I've only made six. How you doing? All
Yeah.
right.
I have
Next.
one. My closest is I have one on a simulator, which I obviously don't
Uh,
count.
Everybody thinks that a hole-in-one is just like good fortune. I tend to think it's just pure skill. I mean, and so you need to work on that. I'm
Sure.
six ahead of you. Favorite pro sports team?
The Cincinnati Bengals.
Bengals. Okay. Course you've never played, but is definitely on your bucket list.
National Golf Links of America, real high up there.
Wow, I love that place. I've not played it, but I obviously know a lot about it. Appropriate tee boxes for distance. Can you still beat Allie?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Wow. Okay,
yeah.
she's gonna. You answered very quickly right there.
Well, she can
Okay.
beat me too, but yes, I definitely still can.
Okay, just making sure. Okay, dream foursome. Last question. You and three others. Who would they be?
Hmm.
Be anybody, dead or alive, family,
Sure.
no family, pro golfer, pro basketball player. Who cares?
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned pro basketball player. I'm gonna choose my teammate. One of my teammates, Colin Haig. He's my US four ball partner, which we've made one, so he's got to be in it.
Okay.
Um, I'm gonna do this. No family, just to
Okay.
just not because of anything. Just I don't want any feelings to be hurt. Uh,
Yep.
so my teammate there, Kobe Bryant, um, probably probably Arnold Palmer, and I was thinking I was gonna do a fivesome, but that's probably who I
Fives is okay. Give me one more.
um probably Tiger Woods.
Boy, Tiger, AP, Kobe Bryant, and your four ball teammate. I like it. Well, listen, Robby, thank you so much for spending an hour with me. I want to wish you and the Wildcats the best of luck at the Buckeye and then at the WAC championship. Um, I know we'll see each other on the road recruiting. I see you at several junior tournaments in the summers as we recruited Texas tournaments. But thanks for spending an hour with me. I love the stories, love your perspectives, and best of luck the rest of the way.
No, I appreciate it. It was great. Good luck to you guys as well. Hopefully you do well come down the stretch and make the regionals.
Sounds great. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Coach McGraw.
Yeah.